Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer signed a tech deal worth billions of dollars. What the president had to say at a business reception during his visit to Britain. Utah Valley University has reopened after the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk on campus last week. Students are making a somber return, but more connected with each other, with an increased presence of law enforcement on patrol. NTD's Jack Bradley is there. ABC polls Jimmy Kimmel Live over the comedian's comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Is there going to be any impact as a result of the decision on other late shows? The House moves closer to avoiding a partial shutdown. Lawmakers advance a stopgap bill tied to heightened security after Charlie Kirk's assassination. A vote could come by Friday. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, is taking over the torch. Turning Point USA elects Erica to be their new CEO and chair. Find out why. President Trump said he plans to designate the U.S. anti-fascist movement known as Antifa as a terrorist organization. What's driving the move and the reactions?
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer take questions from the press before Trump heads back to America. They covered ending the war in the Middle East as well as in Ukraine and the impact cheap oil prices would have on Russia's desire to keep fighting. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson brings us the story.
President Trump said the United States and the United Kingdom have done more good for this world than any other two nations in human history. Speaking before the press during his state visit, he said it's thanks to the traditions of British liberty that grew here and were transported to the New World centuries ago.
But I hope that together our nations can lead a movement to defend the glorious traditions of freedom on both sides of the Atlantic.
The Israel-Hamas war was top of the questions. Starmer has previously said he's willing to recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions, something Trump has described as rewarding the Hamas terror group. His top priority is getting all the hostages released now.
You know, Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. One of our few disagreements, actually.
Well, let me be really clear about Hamas. They're a terrorist organization who can have no part in any future governance in Palestine. And what happened on October the 7th was the worst attack since the Holocaust.
When all hostages are released, Trump suggested he could persuade Israel to end the war in Gaza. Turning to the war in Ukraine, Starmer said it's important to ramp up pressure on Putin given the recent attacks deep into Ukraine and the incursion into Poland.
So we have to ramp up, and we discussed earlier today, we have built the coalition of the willing with British leadership and French leadership, stepping up with military planning in the seas, in the sky, on the ground, and ramping up what we do with the Ukrainians themselves.
Trump said he thought he could strike a deal quickly with Putin, but that Putin let him down.
Well, he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people, and he's losing more people than he's killing. I mean, frankly, the Russian soldiers are being killed at a higher rate than the Ukrainian soldiers.
He lamented that millions of souls have died in the war. Trump has demanded that European nations stop buying Russian oil before he puts more sanctions on Russia.
But I'm willing to do other things, but not when the people that I'm fighting for are buying oil from Russia. If the oil price comes down, very simply, Russia will settle. And the oil price is way down. You know, we got it way down. We're drilling and we produce more oil than anybody else in the world.
And he encouraged Starmer to drill for oil in the North Sea to help bring energy prices down. Starmer said oil and gas will remain a part of the UK's energy picture for years, though he said renewable energy like wind will be part of the mix. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
After a day of royal pomp and pageantry, President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer signed a new tech deal between the countries. Here's President Trump.
The ties between our countries are priceless, and it's really an inheritance. It's a beautiful inheritance. Today we're making those ties closer than ever before. We've done some things that financially are great for both countries, and we work together, and it keeps us together, and I think it's an unbreakable bond we have, regardless of what we're doing today. I think it's unbreakable. In May, the United Kingdom became the first country to make a trade deal with the United States during my second term, and we sort of wanted to make it the first because the bond is so strong and the relationship so long.
Before signing the deal, Trump hailed it as a historic agreement on science and technology. UK officials say the deal will bring thousands of jobs and billions in investment in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and nuclear energy to Britain. The UK and US companies said they had pledged over $204 billion in investment in the country. That includes over $120 billion from investment from Blackstone in the next decade. Investment will also flow the other way, including almost $30 billion by pharmaceutical firm GSK into the U.S. Before bidding farewell to the Trumps, Queen Camilla hosted First Lady Melania Trump. During the visit yesterday, the First Lady and Queen took a private tour of Windsor Castle's Royal Library. They looked at an exhibit of miniature books meaningful to both countries. Included in the collection, Sherlock Holmes and a copy of A.A. Milne's Vespers, which is the first literary appearance of Christopher Robin. Melania Trump and Queen Camilla also visited with a group of local school children who are working on their own set of miniature books. Meanwhile, today, the First Lady and Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, visited Frogmore Gardens, an estate just south of Windsor Castle. They were joined by young children in the Squirrel Scouts program. President Trump says he will designate Antifa as a major terrorist organization. He made the announcement during his state visit to the United Kingdom. In his post, Trump called Antifa, short for anti-fascists, a sick, dangerous radical left disaster and urged investigations into those funding it. Trump had hinted at the move earlier in the week after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Antifa gathered outside the castle in London on Wednesday chanting "Charlie's in a box," referring to Kirk. Critics point out that Antifa is not a centralized group, but a loose movement of far-left activists. Trump's former FBI Director Christopher Wray testified in 2020 that Antifa is an ideology, not an organization, making a terror designation difficult. Still, Republicans, like Senators Bill Cassidy, praised the move, saying Antifa promotes violence and anarchy. Senator Ted Cruz says his proposed Stop Funders Act would track and prosecute Antifa's financial backers. Turning Point USA has elected Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, to be the new CEO and chair of the board. Here's a clip from an earlier edition of The Charlie Kirk Show when Charlie appeared together with his wife.
We have asked the audience for questions. You pick one.
Who is more conservative and why?
Erica.
Yes.
By far. Not even close. I am a moderate compared to Erica.
Andrew always jokes that once you got married to me, you got more based.
That's true. That is true. No, Erica is very conservative.
Turning Point USA says that in prior discussions, Charlie expressed to multiple executives that he would have wanted Erica to carry on his role in the event of his death. The board voted unanimously for Erica. In a statement, the Turning Point board says Charlie prepared them for a moment like this one, and he worked tirelessly to ensure Turning Point USA was built to survive even the greatest tests. The board promises to carry Charlie's mantle and complete his vision. Their statement reads, quote, "We will not surrender or kneel before evil. We will carry on." The late-night talk show Jimmy Kimmel Live has been canceled indefinitely. ABC made the announcement yesterday following sharp backlash over Kimmel's controversial remarks about the assassination of Turning Point founder Charlie Kirk. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more, including a wave of firings tied to insensitive reactions to Kirk's death.
ABC says it's pulling Jimmy Kimmel Live from its schedule after the comedian's comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination sparked outrage. Kimmel referenced suspect Tyler Robinson in a monologue on ABC.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The suspect's mom says he became increasingly concerned about gay and transgender rights over the last year. Sinclair Broadcasting has announced that its ABC affiliates will now air a special tribute to Kirk in Kimmel's former time slot. Meanwhile, Nexstar Media Group, which operates 32 ABC affiliates, announced it will no longer carry the show, calling Kimmel's remarks offensive and insensitive at a critical time in the national political discourse. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr also weighed in during an interview with commentator Benny Johnson.
In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people.
Carr says Kimmel appears to be trying to play into the narrative that Kirk's assassin was MAGA or Republican motivated.
And if that's what happened here with his conduct, that is really, really sick.
President Trump reacted to the news on Truth Social, writing, "Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done." Meanwhile, an ABC reporter has apologized after describing text messages authorities say were exchanged between Charlie Kirk's alleged murderer and the man's boyfriend as very touching. Matt Gutman wrote on X that he was trying to underscore the jarring contrast between the cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk and the personal, disturbing texts. During the ABC broadcast, Gutman said the messages were, quote, "very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect, a very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love." Vice President J.D. Vance also weighed in, condemning individuals who publicly celebrated Kirk's death, speaking on Fox News.
If you were the kind of person who feels joy at the death of a grieving mother and grieving children, what bad decisions have led you to where you are today, and why don't you get back on the right path?
Vance says he's been glad to see civil society stand up and say there are consequences for celebrating the death of a young dad.
We have a First Amendment in this country. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech, but if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being a disgusting person.
That sentiment is playing out across the country. Multiple people have lost their jobs over posts related to Kirk's assassination. Auburn University confirmed several employees were terminated for posts described as hurtful, insensitive, and completely at odds with Auburn's values. Clemson University dismissed 2 faculty members. Florida Atlantic and the University of Miami reprimanded staff. And at Ball State University, the director of health promotion and advocacy was fired after a post she made about Kirk's death. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss this is Dan Schneider, Vice President of the Media Research Center, and we have Christian Toto, award-winning film critic and host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. Dan, I'll start with you today. Can we get your overall thoughts here, your initial reactions to what Kimmel said?
Right. You know, Jimmy Kimmel is perfectly free to say disgusting, vile things. I'm reminded of the KKK and how they will parade down the streets of America and say horrible things. But just like they've got the free speech rights to say those vile, disgusting things, we don't have to accept it as consumers. And employers don't have to keep these people on the payroll. We can fire people if they are racist and sexist, and ABC was right to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel.
Okay, Christian, can you talk to us about free speech here in relation to what ABC did in response?
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch. You know, Jimmy Kimmel has been one of the people who has basically ignored cancel culture, and even as a comedian who should be aghast about it, has said almost nothing. He kind of chuckled over Tucker Carlson and Roseanne being fired. But having said all that, you know, what he said about Charlie Kirk's murder and trying to pin the blame on MAGA was genuinely reprehensible. And, you know, he had all the time to apologize, to backpedal, and he didn't. He was actually going to double down and say, you took me out of context. So it's a fascinating case. Listen, it's up to ABC to decide in the affiliates whether this goes on. My personal take would be that maybe like 2 weeks suspension to kind of show him the error of his ways, but we'll have to see how things go from here. But it is complicated, and we just don't want the government to say you can't do these things. If the studios say it, if the affiliates say it, that's a different matter.
So Dan, Christian brought up cancel culture. How do you respond to accusations of cancel culture in light of this?
Yeah. I can understand why some people might get confused, but the two are completely different. Cancel culture, as we had to live through for almost a decade, was where the radical left was forcing people to believe and affirmatively articulate viewpoints that many of us disagreed with. And if we didn't toe their line, we were debanked, we were canceled, we were silenced, we lost our jobs because we would not adopt personal views and personal beliefs that we objected to. That's not what's going on here. Charlie Kirk actually platformed. He didn't deplatform people who disagreed with him. He gave them a platform to debate him and to disagree with him. This is what free speech is all about. But that does not mean that if somebody says something disgusting and vile, they're not going to pay the societal consequences for it.
So Christian, do you agree with what you just heard, that this is slightly different than the cancel culture that we used to talk about?
No, yeah, I agree completely. It used to be if you had the wrong opinion or if you said something untoward a decade ago, all of a sudden you were in jeopardy. But I just think it's notable that Jimmy Kimmel just didn't stand up against that scourge in recent years. I mean, he had a great platform. He's a comedian. He actually did some pretty outrageous bits back in the day with The Man Show, and he really should have been on the forefront. Listen, he could be political, he can be progressive, that's perfectly fine. But he really should have defended his fellow comedians who were self-censoring based on what was going on. So that's part of the problem here too.
So Dan, Christian brought up this point as well earlier in his response. Do you think the U.S. government here should be involved in this? We saw pressure from FCC chairman, right? Brendan Carr criticizing Kimmel, saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And as well, on top of that, suggesting the FCC could revoke ABC affiliate licenses.
Yeah, if you're a streamer, have an online show, or if you're a cable company, you don't have the kind of restrictions that broadcasters do. But broadcasters use the public airwaves. Those airwaves are owned and controlled by the American people. And it's actually the responsibility, the requirement of the Federal Communications Commission to ensure that these broadcasters are serving the public interest. And the public interest does not mean some narrow sliver of radical left-wing agitators. It means the whole public. So I can understand why there might be an initial concern, people wondering, what is Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, doing? Well, he's required to. He's got to make sure that the public airwaves are actually being used to serve the whole public and not just a sliver of it.
Okay, Christian, so I don't know if you're referring to this, but is the FCC chairman involving in the agency's involving the agency in the network's editorial decisions?
Well, we don't know. I mean, he made comments on a podcast, and then in short order, these affiliates bowed out. So is it cause and effect? We're not quite sure. It does get tricky, and I think for years that everything that was just said has been true, but no one has really applied it to what's going on in the broadcast space. So I think that's one of the differences here. And having said that, this is a national tragedy. This is a major event. And for a broadcaster like Kimmel to go out and say this, either he didn't know it was completely inaccurate, which is shocking, or he knew it and didn't care. And also, again, we should allow for broadcasters to make mistakes and then come back and say, listen, I want to correct the record the next night, because there were more damning pieces of evidence that were just securing the fact that we know exactly what the motivation was here. And yet on Tuesday night, the night after he spoke, he didn't see anything. And he was going to reportedly say, you took me out of context. He couldn't even own up to it then, even when things were getting pretty heated. So it just speaks to him as a broadcaster and not in a good way.
Right. And I'm wondering as well, Dan, how much do you think the FCC's pressure factor into the decision here versus, Nexstar pulling the program from its stations?
Don, you're asking really, really excellent questions. I'm sure that Nexstar and Sinclair were feeling some of that pressure, knowing that they now have an FCC that is actually doing its job in protecting the public airwaves. Let me just add this one last thing. You asked Christian whether the FCC might be sort of monitoring what the programming is in local stations. The Obama administration actually tried to do that. they tried to put their FCC cops into newsrooms. And at that time, a minority commissioner, Ajit Pai, who later became chairman in the first Trump administration, Ajit blew the whistle. The Obama administration was actually trying to control what the content was coming out of news stations, local broadcast news stations. That is unacceptable. That's unconstitutional. And I can almost guarantee you that a chairman, Brendan Carr, would never allow something like that to take place.
That is fascinating. Christian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great point. And, I think this entire incident, what it should do is show people across the ideological aisle to say, hey, this kind of suppression is never good. We should always step very carefully. We should follow the law for sure. But that the people who are complaining the most right now, they have to look at what they've done, what they've said, what they tried to do in recent years. It is directly applicable to what's happening right now. And I think that could be the only good side of this, where we come together and say, yes, all of these kind of things are wrong. We need to be careful. At the same time, by the way, ABC should be just more responsible with their programming. What you see on The View, which is also an ABC program, is often reprehensible and completely fact-free and cruel. And the fact that they just haven't stood up until now is a shame on them.
Dan, can we talk about the show itself as well? I mean, there's a number of factors being thrown around here. I'm not sure which one is the biggest contributor, but how has the show been received in recent times? How are the ratings, Dan?
You're talking about Jimmy Kimmel's show?
Yes.
Well, look, he's kind of like Stephen Colbert. His ratings have been in decline. The revenues have been in decline. Stephen Colbert, of course, was taking $40 million per year in an annual salary. I don't think Kimmel has been taking that much money, but the Colbert Show overall was a gigantic loser. But for ABC, its reputation is really on the line. And Christian is exactly right. The View is part of the ABC News division, not the ABC Entertainment division, but The View, they claim, is news. And, there's nothing but, sort of propaganda and sort of embarrassingly bad content on The View.
So Christian, do you think there's going to be an impact now as of what ABC did to the Jimmy Kimmel Live show? Perhaps it might have an impact on The View, for example, or other late shows like Jimmy Fallon and others.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the best case scenario, they're more careful with what they say as far as being accurate. They all should be accurate. And this, this fusion between entertainment and comedy and political news is tricky because you want to promote satire, you want to have sort of a humorous edge. But if you're sharing blatantly false information, you're not doing the public a good service. And listen, if I'm The View, I'd be very worried about this because what they say on an almost weekly basis would shame and shock Jimmy Kimmel himself. So that's just be better. Be better. Your broadcasters, show some responsibility. You can be left of center all day long. You can be progressive. You can share those points of view. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you share absolute falsehoods again and again and again, that's an issue. That's a problem. You're not serving the public at all.
Dan, how did we get here? Where late night shows are becoming increasingly left-wing and at the same time less friendly to conservatives?
Well, look, I guess the sort of connected to that question is what has happened to the Democrat Party. Traditional Democrats don't recognize their party any longer. The leadership of the party has become so radicalized. And then that same sort of leadership has taken over so many different institutions in America, media, entertainment, academia. So then you only have a few voices remaining, like a Bill Maher. Christian is describing Bill Maher, who's politically left of center, but he's remained a traditional Democrat who is standing for truth. And somebody like a Bill Maher was very vocal during the cancel culture movement, saying this is terrible. He has been very vocal in opposing those who are trying to suppress Israel's rights to defend itself. We need more Bill Mahers in news and entertainment today. People really willing to stand up for truth, even though sort of their party has gone off the rails.
Christian, I can't help but wonder here, has there been a cultural shift? Because I'm thinking, would this have happened 3 years ago in the same circumstance?
It's a great question. There's definitely a shift happening. Also, it's a media shift as well, because when you think about what Jimmy Kimmel said, I don't think it would get a lot of coverage, if any. As a matter of fact, I don't think the legacy media really talked about it directly, what he said about the Charlie Kirk murderer. It was social media. It was, it was these new platforms and formats. It was podcasts. And all of a sudden the word got out and the pressure started to build. So I think in the past, the legacy media could really, just cover up these stories when celebrities behave badly and say atrocious things, and we wouldn't really know about it. That's no longer the case. They can't cover it up anymore. They would have dragged this one around for a while until they had to cover it. But now, of course, they have to.
Okay, I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. Dan, I'll just ask you one more question, and then I'll get final thoughts from Christian. So, Dan, what do you think about dozens of ABC stations now are set to air Charlie Kirk tribute specials during Jimmy Kimmel's time slot?
Yeah, look, this is what Sinclair and Next are. These are companies that own lots of these ABC affiliates. Those companies are responding to the community interest. What does the community want? And it's clear from people nationwide mourning the death of Charlie Kirk that we're wanting closure. So I think it's a smart business move, and it's the right move for America.
Okay, Christian, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just my final thoughts are simple. The left has ignored cancel culture and/or cheered it on. Now they're aghast about it. Whether it's cancel culture exactly. I know we talked about the nuance there. But let's just all come together and say, listen, let's promote free speech. Let's promote responsibility. And let's call people out when they are, abusing the public airwaves. I mean, there's a lot of important lessons to be learned here. And, at the end of the day, I hope Jimmy Kimmel just looks in the mirror and realizes what he did and what he said and why it was so wrong. I just hope that he just finds a little humanity there and said, boy, that was a terrible thing to say. At the end of the day, that was just wrong. I don't know if he's there yet.
Well, gentlemen, great discussion today. Thank you both, Dan, Christian.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, this Sunday, NTD Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer will host our live special coverage of TPUSA's memorial service for the late Charlie Kirk and a life of faith and conviction. Stay tuned for that. President Donald Trump and many others are scheduled to speak at the event, which is going to be in the live coverage. So watch our pre and post memorial coverage starting at 12 p.m. Eastern only on NTD. Coming up, Utah Valley University has reopened after the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk on campus last week. Students are making a somber return, but more connected with each other with an increased presence of law enforcement on patrol. Stay tuned.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I just can't. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Did you know Mathis Home has been giving their customers the best styles and value for 65 years? Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings on everything in the store. This set is a great deal. You get the modern trestle table with 4 comfy side chairs, the complete set for just $8.89. With over 100 dining sets in stock, you're sure to find the one just right for your family and get free delivery. Get your new dining room now with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Students are returning to campus at Utah Valley University, the location where conservative influencer Charlie Kirk was assassinated last week. NTD's Jack Bradley is there on site. Jack, good to see you. How are students doing following this tragic event?
Well, a word I keep hearing from students is devastated. As they're returning to campus, which officially reopened to students yesterday, there's large memorials set up all around the campus here. One large one in front of the campus where we are right now, and others closer to where the site of where Kirk was assassinated. There are flags, flowers, and pictures of Kirk, and where Kirk was speaking, there's a massive American flag hanging. Some students and members of the community have called for there to be a permanent memorial for Charlie Kirk to be placed there. Now, students can be seen all around campus writing messages in chalk about the legacy that Kirk left behind and how they impacted their lives positively, about how he impacted them. And there are also other students with going to mental health. There are mental health science stations all set up around the campus. It seems that everyone here has been impacted from what I've seen. I spoke to one student who said that he didn't really like Charlie Kirk before, but after the shooting he started watching more of his videos and he changed his mind. Take a look.
Before this happened, I did not like listening to him. I did not. From a distance, I thought he was just being contentious.
Have your views changed at all after?
100%. Literally, that bullet was fired. Everyone changed. He's there with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated for his political beliefs. Abraham Lincoln tried to mend the gap. He tried to unite people. Charlie, I now know for myself, after listening to reports of him, not what other people have said about him in the telephone game, but rather watching what he said, rather how he treated other people that were different than him, who believed differently than him. He treated them with respect. He was consistent. The humanity in him is worth remembering because we're all humans.
Now, this is not a normal day on campus. There are many empty classrooms. Some teachers are recording their classes, allowing their students a chance to miss class for a couple of weeks without penalty, while other teachers are holding their classes entirely online. Extra police presence is seen patrolling the campus all around. Now, hear what some students say it's like to be back after this shocking tragedy. Watch.
People are kind of coming together. People are mourning, you know. There's not a whole lot of like fighting right now. It's just
Everyone's talking about it. It's kind of impossible to be here and not talk about it.
Feels like a lot of people realize very suddenly that life is short and precious, and we do have a lot of differences, but it's better to unite.
Charlie Kirk made it clear that his first duty was to God, and then his duty after that was to his family, and then obviously to politics after that. And I think we need more people that have their priorities in the divine, in God, and that they have a priority to establishing a family unit dedicated to God.
It really all changed once he was shot, and it was just devastating, you know, seeing it, you know, I couldn't even comprehend it. It's been really nice seeing how everyone's come together despite the different political beliefs. And I've talked to a lot more people now about just various different things. And it's really been nice to have that community and that conversation.
As students are going to class, they're also paying their respects, laying flowers at the memorials around campus for Charlie Kirk, and also members of the community coming by as well to pay their respects. Meanwhile, prosecutors have charged 22-year-old Tyler Robinson with aggravated murder, among other charges, in Kirk's assassination. They are seeking the death penalty. Back to you.
And Jack, the Turning Point board has unanimously elected Erica Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board. Tell us more about that.
Right, so the organization said Charlie Kirk said to multiple executives a while ago that this is what he would have wanted in the event of his death. Erica Kirk, his wife, made her first public appearance following her husband's death last week, and she said in a video message that Charlie's message will live on and grow. Watch.
Already I have seen the worldwide outpouring of love for my husband. I've heard the testimonies from people my husband inspired to get married, to start families, to seek out a relationship with God. It's the most important one of all. The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. But they should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country.
Now, in electing Erica Kirk as their new CEO and now head of the board of Turning Point said in a statement today that, quote, the attempt to destroy Charlie's work will become our chance to make it more powerful and enduring than ever before. Don.
Okay, Jack, thank you. Representative Ilhan Omar will not face censure for her comments on Charlie Kirk. 4 Republicans crossed the aisle to join Democrats in voting against the resolution, which would have reprimanded her and stripped her from committee assignments. At issue are comments Omar made that Representative Nancy Mace claims smeared Kirk. Omar's office disputes that. A spokesperson admits Omar grappled with Kirk's divisive legacy in a media interview. But the spokesperson also said she did not imply violence was deserved and has repeatedly condemned political violence. The U.S. House has given lawmakers more money for personal security following Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's an extension of a pilot program that started in July after 2 Minnesota state lawmakers and their spouses were shot in June. The program gave members $20,000 for home security and $5,000 for personal security. The extension doubles the amount for personal security to $10,000 a month, but it expires on November 21st. The original pilot program was set to expire at the end of this month before this extension. President Trump wrapped up his state visit to Britain. Joining us now to discuss U.S.-UK relations is retired U.S. Navy Captain Armin Kurdian. He's also a foreign policy and national security analyst, as well as a California State Senate candidate. So good afternoon, Armin. So a second state visit for a U.S. president is rather rare. So what does this say about the relationship between the U.S. and U.K. under the Trump administration?
Well, historically, the UK has always been America's strongest overseas ally. Obviously, Canada and Mexico are two right there on our border, so we have to be close allies with them. Canada's a huge trading partner, but the UK, historically, very, very strong ties for almost 2 centuries that we've been together. So going over there continues to reinforce, and not just for England, even though and Great Britain, as they have left the European Union, but it does show for the rest of the European countries that the Trump administration is committed to a strong relationship with Europe. So I think in a lot of ways, this deal not only benefits the UK and the US, through trade, and we've seen this is a tremendous deal, the biggest one that the UK says that they've ever had. But it also shows confidence that the United States will be a reliable partner going forward.
How would you say U.S.-UK relations now compare to past administrations?
At the beginning, I think, of the Trump administration, there might have been some concern with Trump administration, especially with tariffs. The Trump administration's effort to impose tariffs all over the world, it didn't go over well, not only overseas, but it didn't go over well here. So it's been much more targeted and much more focused as of late. But coming out of this deal with the hundreds of billions of dollars of economic activity that's going to come out with the additional investment by NVIDIA and Google and Microsoft in AI technology, civil nuclear energy in Great Britain, as well as increased trade coming out of Great Britain, a reduction in tariffs of American goods. It is a win-win for both sides. So both President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer were very, very applauding of each other, very, very positive in this. It was a very, very positive news conference. And it sounds like the president's time at Chequers was very well spent and overall very positive.
You know, Armin, with the current geopolitical environment, you know, whether it's the war that Russia started against Ukraine or China's aggressiveness in its region, how critical would you say the UK is to the US in its strategies abroad?
Absolutely vital and indispensable. So the UK is still part of NATO, even though they aren't part of the European Union. The UK arguably has the strongest and most well-trained military of NATO in the European Union. If you remember, during Desert Storm, the UK provided 70,000 troops. Once again, during OIF, the UK was basically one of the very last nations to depart the coalition before the conflict was brought to an end. The UK has always been out there as a reliable partner. So having the UK on board and perhaps also nudging and pushing the rest of the NATO nations to do their part, as Trump is pushing the UK to do their part in terms of supporting NATO, is going to be absolutely vital. Whether or not that happens to be a conflict on the European border to the east with Russia, or even in the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific region with China. Great Britain is one of those very few nations in the world that does have a global reach and could potentially help the U.S. in that region as well.
So with that being said, Armin, how close are the two countries' militaries?
Very, very strong. We do exercises on a regular basis. The UK has been buying F-35s. They're flying. They buy a lot of U.S. military equipment as well. The U.S. ships regularly come into British ports. We have U.S. bases there on British soil. So it is inexorably tied there. The U.S. needs Great Britain. Great Britain needs the U.S. And these types of military relationships going forward are vital to show a united and strong front against Russia. The question really then becomes, from a willpower perspective, does the U.S. and the West have the willpower to stand up to the Russian absolute determination, despite their economic mediocrity in this conflict with Ukraine? So, if you remember going back to 1990, Desert Storm, when George H.W. Bush wasn't exactly sure whether the U.S. should enter Desert Storm, Prime Minister Thatcher, flippantly said, "Don't go all wobbly on me, George." So there have been times in world history where the UK has actually had to nudge the US to do the right thing. So hopefully the US and the UK are on the same page going forward.
Let me ask you this too, Armin. Where would you say the US and UK are the most aligned? And as well, where are they most divided?
I would say they're divided on some aspects of trade. I know there was some disappointment on the part of UK that the efforts to eliminate all the tariffs on British steel were temporarily shelved. If you remember earlier this year, there was an agreement that steel, that came from Britain, we would eliminate tariffs, but the concern was, minimally processed or partially processed steel coming in from China, going through Great Britain, coming into the U.S. Trump was putting tariffs on those and trying to stop that from actually happening. So So still maybe some differences there, but militarily, I think we're very strongly aligned. Geopolitically, I think we're aligned about 80%, 90% of the way. So a lot of positivity there. Militarily, it's always been a very strong relationship, and frankly, it absolutely needs to be. It's essential.
So just finally, Armin, and I always like to ask this in these special visits, because it is rare for a U.S. president to get a second state visit. So is there a message here, perhaps signals that are sending to allies in Europe and enemies as well, adversaries?
Yes, I think it's very, very strong, both to adversaries and allies alike, that the U.S. is going to be a reliable partner. As I said, this trip was as much for the rest of the European Union as it was for the UK, and also to show Russia and China and the new axis that the two strongest militaries on the earth are united and will operate in tandem if necessary. The question again becomes, as I said, is the willpower. Do we have the will to actually go and execute and do what is necessary to stop aggression in other parts of the world and work together to eliminate these hotspots or other areas where Russian or communist aggression may come in, where you influence, you see China's in their Belt and Road Initiative and other parts of the world. Western economies, free markets, capitalism is the surest fire way to push the bulwark against socialism and tyranny that is the other side. The US and UK have to be aligned in that manner going forward.
Well, Armin, you always have great comments, and we always enjoy listening to them. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Don. Have a great day.
A study from the German Economic Institute reveals the United States relies more on imports from the European Union than previously thought. Data shows the bloc surpassing China in both total value and the number of goods. According to the study, the number of product groups in which at least half of imports came from the EU rose to over 3,000 last year. That's a jump more than 2,600 in 2010. The total import value of those goods reached $287 billion, nearly 2.5 times more than in 2010. Imports included chemical products, electrical goods, machinery, and equipment. By comparison, China last year accounted for 2,900 of those product groups, with a total value of $247 billion. And a major tech investment, Nvidia today said it will invest $5 billion in Intel, throwing its heft behind the struggling U.S. chip maker. The move comes just weeks after the White House engineered a deal for the U.S. government to take a massive stake in the company. The stake instantly will make Nvidia one of Intel's largest shareholders. Nvidia support represents a new opening for Intel after years of turnaround efforts failed to pay off. The investment news sent shares soaring 30% in pre-market action. Intel appointed a new CEO, Lip Futan, in March. He came under fire due to concerns about his connections with China. That led to a swiftly arranged meeting in Washington that ended with Intel agreeing to give the United States a 10% stake in the company. China reportedly ordered its top tech firms to stop buying Nvidia's AI chips. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang yesterday responded by saying he was disappointed with what he saw and that the U.S. and Beijing have larger agendas to work out. He added that the chip maker can only be in service of a market if a country wants us to be. House Speaker Mike Johnson spoke last night on CNBC about the issue. Watch.
China has been working for a long time now to become a peer-to-peer adversary with the United States, and we're in a race with them, frankly, in so many areas. China is not a fair trading partner. I mean, they're a communist regime. They steal our intellectual property. They have no regard.
Johnson said it is not the U.S., but China that's straining relations between the two countries. Coming up, did extreme political rhetoric play a role in the assassination of Charlie Kirk? We have a reporter out in D.C. to hear from the people.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, MyPillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7. the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today, and your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Did extreme political rhetoric play a role in the assassination of Charlie Kirk? NTD Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
What was your initial reaction upon seeing what happened to Charlie last week?
My initial reaction was our nation is in serious trouble, because if he can be shot because of his words, then none of us have freedom of speech. And that bullet wasn't just for Charlie, it was for anyone who who enjoyed their freedom to speak what they thought.
Well, the amazing thing is I heard about it from one of my coworkers. It was one of her young kids. He was a teenager that called his mom and said, "You're not going to believe this, that Charlie..." And I have daughter and a son-in-law to be, and they all followed him, and it's unfortunate. Whether, anybody that wants to speak out against anything should have the right.
There's been a lot of talks about toning down the rhetoric, because in the past few years we're seeing this kind of rhetoric coming from mainstream media talking about, Nazis, demonizing the other side, calling them Hitler. What do you think about that? Do you think this kind of fuels the sentiment and which led up to what happened last week?
Yeah, I think it definitely fueled the system. I think social media is probably the biggest evil of all of it.
The fella who's in the news, supposed to be being objective, has a real strong, he has a dog in the fight. If John Wilkes Booth, is it okay for him to have, you want to talk about his sweetness, you want to talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, you want to talk about the fellow that shot Martin Luther King. Let's have a lot of sympathy for him. Is that going to fly?
I am a huge advocate for free speech, but speech has its consequences. And when you demean people and you talk down to people, when you call people names that trigger a negative response, you become responsible for what happens to that individual.
We're hearing some people on the other side of the aisle, in particular, people like John Fetterman, Dean Phillips on the Democratic side, urging people on his side to tone down the temperature. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. That's the right thing to do.
Well, the best thing I can think of about that was they were having a moment of silence for Charlie in the Congress, I believe, and everybody bowed their head. And then Lauren Boebert called out and said, let's have some prayer. And the other side said, no, doesn't matter who you are, stirring the pot isn't going to make things better.
I agree, yes. And I'm glad he...
Fetterman credit.
Yeah. You have a different viewpoint of it, but he's finally coming out and admitting enough is enough, and you need to stop this rhetoric.
Common sense, a little bit of common sense goes a long way. There ain't much of it these days.
It's not so common anymore.
The House will vote on a continuing resolution later this week. Lawmakers want to avoid a partial government shutdown in 2 weeks. The news comes after representatives yesterday advanced the measure to tee up the vote. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson.
So this will not be a partisan CR. It will be a clean, short-term continuing resolution, end of story. And it's interesting to me that some of the same Democrats who decried government shutdowns under President Biden appear to have no heartache whatsoever at walking our nation off that cliff.
Their proposal is status quo. The Americans are not happy. American people are not happy with that status quo. And what our bill says is control rising costs, which American people hate, fix health care, which the Republican big beautiful bill decimated, and the American people, I believe, will side with us because we are on.
Lawmakers voted 216 to 210 to approve the measure that will open debate on the stopgap legislation. The bill will fund federal agencies past the September 30th cutoff through November 21st. The resolution includes nearly $90 million to increase security for members of Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. This follows last week's assassination of Charlie Kirk. The House GOP is hoping to pass the stopgap by Friday to send it to the Senate. The Senate needs time to approve the measure before sending it to President Trump's desk. The White House has supported the resolution, while Democrats criticize it as being a partisan bill. The number of Americans filing new applications for unemployment benefits declined to a one-month low. The employment data continues to send mixed signals about labor market conditions. According to new Department of Labor data, initial jobless claims fell by 33,000 to 231,000 last week. It marks the lowest level since the middle of August. This represented the sharpest weekly drop in nearly 4 years. Recurring claims have remained above 1.9 million for 17 consecutive weeks. That trend indicates the challenges workers face in finding new employment. CCP-linked criminal networks have one of the most secure and sophisticated communication networks through the use of WeChat, a technological tool that is outside the reach of U.S. authorities. We have that story and more when we come back.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough, but Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again.
Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money.